And this is out of alignment with the second principle of Unitarian Universalism, which calls for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. The fact of the matter is that Unitarian Universalist ministers and Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers who are rapists and pedophiles and so on actually have better access to proper justice within the criminal justice system than clergy misconduct complainants do within the Unitarian Universalist Church's policies and procedures for dealing with clergy misconduct. The pedophiles and rapists can appeal their sentences and basically at least one level and possibly even 2 or 3 levels. You know, it can potentially go to 2 or 3 different levels of court, you know, up to the Supreme Court. So the criminals, you know, have appeal processes available to them to appeal, you know, sentences and so on. But within the Unitarian Universalist, you know, Church, and I use that word advisedly, there's nothing, zero, in the way of appeals processes for victims of clergy sexual misconduct. And that includes victims of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers. And in fact, the UUA has a long track record of trying to silence victims of clergy misconduct of all kinds, but perhaps particularly victims of clergy sexual misconduct or you know, whistleblowers and critics and so on. So yeah, just the fact that there is still no appeals process in place. There easily could have been. You know, the UUA, if it had the political will, could have put a temporary, it's not funny, my dear, your church is guilty of misusing blasphemy law to cover up and hide pedophilia and rape committed by
this church and this
your religion, your religious community. The UUA is the headquarters.
We're talking about something that happened in the United States.
Yeah, you ever heard of this thing called the interconnected web of all existence? Yeah. You're a Unitarian. Your religion, the head office of your religion, the Vatican of your religion, is guilty of falsely accusing me of a criminal act known as blasphemous libel in legal bullying that seeks to hide pedophilia and rape committed by and you're complicit in that. You are, every single member of this church is totally complicit unless you speak out against it. And I haven't heard you or anyone else speak out against it.
I haven't heard any
What?
I haven't heard any proven allegations.
You haven't looked. You're willfully ignorant, just like everyone else in that church. She says you haven't heard any. Yeah, she hasn't even bothered to look. That's the thing. It's like, yeah, just wallow in willful ignorance and psychological denial. You know, like there's another principle of Unitarian Universalism called the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. It's the fourth principle of Unitarian Universalism, and of course it's very closely related to the second principle, which calls for justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. You cannot have genuine justice without a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning of, you know, whatever justice issue happened. That's why when you go to a court of law, you're sworn to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But when I tell Unitarian Universalists, well, you know, you've got a bit of a problem in that this or that or the other thing happened, instead of engaging in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning to see whether what I'm saying is true or not, they just blow it off and dismiss it. That's what this woman did. She's been coming to the Unitarian Church in Montreal now for years. I've seen her coming here for at least 2 years, and it might be longer by a year or two. I will say, you know, I can't say that I saw her a decade ago or 7 or 8 years ago, but I've definitely seen her coming quite regularly to the Unitarian Church of Montreal within, you know, the last 2 to 3 years. And she's seen my picket signs. You know, every time she comes to the church, she sees my picket signs. You know, this girl pulling up on the bike, she sees my picket signs too. And instead of instead of engaging in a free and responsible search for the truth and meaning of what's on my picket signs, they just ignore them. They just pretend that nothing's wrong, that what's on the picket signs doesn't reflect reality, when in fact, I am very, very careful to ensure that what's on the picket signs is solidly supported by readily provable evidence. When the Unitarian Universalist Association accused me of blasphemous libel for blogging about Unitarian Universalist pedophiles and rapists, the exact words of the accusation that the UUA's Canadian attorney wrote in his arrogant and aggressive cease and desist demand letter are the following words: "Your unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape are defamatory." And he went on to say that they're so defamatory that they constitute the criminal act of blasphemous libel. So let's go back to the beginning of that. Your unfounded and vicious allegations. Well, guess what? There was nothing unfounded about my allegations. They were based on newspaper reports about Unitarian Universalists who were charged, tried, and convicted of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and or rape, and sentenced to jail terms for those despicable crimes. And this was reported in newspapers, some of which the information is available online, but a lot of it you have to actually go to newspaper databases and so on. It's not all available on the internet. So you do have to do a little bit of digging in some cases, but nonetheless, in terms of the cases that I blogged about, I made a point of blogging only about cases where people are actually charged, tried, and convicted, because I wanted to be on very, very solid ground. I didn't want Unitarian Universalists to try and pretend that I was slandering or libeling the church. I certainly didn't want to be sued for slander and libel. I'm not interested in slandering and libeling anyone. I'm interested in telling the truth. But what I'm getting at is I wanted to minimize the possibility that such a thing would happen. So what happens is instead of accusing me of ordinary slander or libel, which would have been false anyway, the church actually had the unmitigated gall to falsely accuse me of the criminal act of blasphemous libel, which carries a 2-year jail term if you're convicted of it, in efforts to intimidate me into removing these blog posts. So as I said, the lawyer said my blog posts were unfounded and vicious. He did not identify them in the original demand letter, which demanded that I take down blog posts. Now, I knew pretty much which blog posts he was talking about, but I also knew that they were not unfounded in any way. They're very, very solidly founded on fact. So I wrote back to Maitre Colombe and I said, I'm having considerable difficulty finding the Emerson Avenger blog posts that match your description of unfounded and vicious allegations to the effect that ministers of the association engage in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. Could you please provide me with titles of the blog posts in question that you're talking about? Can you please provide me with internet addresses, URLs? Can you provide me at least with the date that these blog posts were posted, so I can go and find them and read them and decide, how I want to govern myself, because down at the bottom of the letter it says, do govern yourself accordingly. So basically telling him to back up his claims with the evidence, like which blog post are you talking about here? So what does he do? He, good day, sir. He not only, I'm talking to my camera. He not only does absolutely nothing to properly identify the blog posts, but he comes back and he says something to the effect of, your claims not to be able to find the offending material are not credible, blah, 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 blah. In other words, go find it yourself, buddy. So I had to write back to Maitre Colombe and say, no, you don't quite understand. I do know where I wrote about Unitarian Universalist ministers engaging in such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape. I just don't know where the unfounded blog posts are. Well, that's very symbolic. C'est très symbolique, ça. This dog just pissed on the mission statement of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I'd say that's quite symbolic. Yeah, piss on the empty words of Unitarian Universalists. Very intelligent dog, knows what he's up to. Knows a lot more than a whole bunch of other people. Good morning. That was a memorable moment there. That dog pissing on your mission statement. Yeah, the dog knows something about your mission statement. So anyway, getting back to what? I'm sorry I couldn't hear because of the traffic noise. You can repeat it if you want. But no, that dog, I think that dog knew what it was doing when it pissed on your mission statement, because if you read the mission statement, it's meaningless. Well, yeah, you're taking it literally. I'm being obviously facetious here, you know, sarcastic, that kind of thing. But no, the dog, I think, dog's a pretty smart dog. So actually, it's really funny because you know, the dog literally pissed on the mission statement, or at least the you know, sign container that it's in. To diverge a little bit, Montreal Unitarian Jeremy Searle once said he'd piss on me. Now, I'm not sure if he meant it literally or figuratively. I suspect he meant it figuratively more than literally, you know, that he'd piss on me by you know, doing things to embarrass me or whatever, to, you know, get me into some trouble. And he actually did try. He actually involved himself in false criminal charges against me in an effort to shut down my protest. That didn't work out very well for him. So yeah, he did try to piss on me in one way or another. So yeah, it's kind of funny when this dog pisses on the mission statement, which essentially is a pile of bullshit. Looks like we're at the end of a half-hour segment here, but I'm going to talk about the mission statement soon. That's it there.